Your Health Expo is happening at lovely Cahir House Hotel next Sunday, and it's between 11 and 5 p.m. The star speaker is Patrick Holford, who is a leading spokesperson on nutrition in the media, specialising in the field of mental health, and he's the author of 36 books translated into over 30 languages, selling millions right around the world. And I'm delighted to say he's online with me now. Hello, Patrick, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me. My first time in Cahir, this will be.
Well, you will get a great welcome, I would imagine, because Tipperary people know of your work extremely well. It's about, you're going to home in on the 5 secrets of super healthy people. Presumably this is research you've done, this is studies that you've done.
Well, we've actually studied over 100,000 people tracking their health. And the big concept really is that, of course, we're all worried about, developing diabetes or heart disease or cancer or arthritis and all these kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And they don't come out of nowhere. A simple way of putting it is that we all have a certain adaptive capacity, or if you like, money in your health deposit account. And as you get older, depending on what you do, what you eat, drink, and think, and exercise, and all the rest of it, you start to lose that resilience, that adaptive capacity. And then the body tips over into, these health problems. A very simple example is a lot of people find that later in life they're gaining weight.
Yes.
If you ask them, are you eating more than you used to, they'd say no. But, it becomes harder and harder to maintain the weight. So my research has really been about that. How do you keep yourself 100% healthy? What is the difference between those people who live into their 90s and never developing a disease as such, and versus, the rest of us and most people who by the time they enter their 40s and certainly their 50s, are starting to clock up health problems.
Is there anything in the idea that some of us are worriers and we almost expect ill health? And is that putting a program into place in our heads in some way?
Well, there's a little bit in that, in the sense that looking at studies on longevity, people who have a positive attitude, people who are doing things that they enjoy, conscientious people tend to live longer. One of the fascinating things I learned about in a number of different studies was looking at the effect of negative emotions. And it turned out that it wasn't stress, it wasn't anger, it wasn't depression. The negative emotion that is most associated with poor health across a number of different measures is actually hostile cynicism.
Wow.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That's very interesting indeed. And
so there's definitely an attitudinal effect. But I will say one thing. One subject I'm going to touch on is how to keep your memory very, very sharp. And if you take 100 people, let's say in their 60s,
yeah.
and you ask them, are you concerned about your memory? Do you think your memory is getting worse? And let's say, for sake of argument, that 50% say yes and 50% say no. If you then test them on a cognitive function test, you'll find just as many who are not concerned are actually losing their memory function as those who are concerned. So there are some areas where subjective view is actually not the best way of knowing what's really going on.
I'm fascinated by your work, and I've read several of your books. One aspect of it really fascinates me, because it's close to me at the moment, is the idea that you can prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. You really believe that, Patrick?
Oh, absolutely. And back in the days of Hippocrates, people thought diseases were caused by the gods. Mm. And his real breakthrough was, he said, I don't believe that. There will be causes for diseases. And, he was the man who said, let food be your medicine.
Yes.
So, we're talking the same language. But nowadays, these sort of diseases caused by the gods almost parallels diseases caused by genes. And, let me just ask you, what percentage of Alzheimer's would you guess is caused by genes?
I would imagine a large part of it, maybe 50% of it.
Okay, it's 1%.
1%?
And that's a fact. That's an undisputed fact. 1 in 100 cases of Alzheimer's is caused by genes.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And we know that at least 55% of the attributable cause for Alzheimer's are things that we can change. So in other words, potentially 99 out of 100 cases of Alzheimer's are preventable, but certainly half of the cause of Alzheimer's is preventable.
And I know you'll be speaking about this, but can you tell us in some way, how can we prevent it?
Well, I mean, let me give you two examples.
Yes.
As you get older, your ability to absorb vitamin B12 goes down. Mm-hmm. It's not because you're not eating enough meat, fish, eggs, milk, which contain B12. It's to do with absorption of B12. To the point where 2 in 5 people over 60 have insufficient B12 to stop accelerated brain shrinkage leading to dementia Alzheimer's. So it's very dangerous to be in your 60s and say, I believe you can get all the nutrients you need from a well-balanced diet, because 2 in 5 will develop dementia as a consequence. They actually need to supplement B12. Now, what happens is that something in your blood called homocysteine, which is measurable, it's a test your doctor can do, goes up. And that high homocysteine, low B12, accounts for 22%, so let's say a quarter of all Alzheimer's, just that. Now, another factor, omega-3. We know that having a low fish intake and a low omega-3 intake also, coincidentally, accounts for 22% of Alzheimer's cases. So doing something as simple as increasing your omega-3s, which I'm going to be talking about in my seminar, because it also helps your mood, it also reduces your risk for heart disease. Something as simple as having an inexpensive homocysteine test, it's a standard blood test, and if it is high, supplementing B12, actually not only helps improve your memory, it also strengthens your bones, because you need B12 to build bones. That's why a lot of older people develop osteoporosis. So in my seminars, there's going to be lots of little tips like this, little ways that people can tune up and find out what they're doing that, could do with a little bit of improvement.
And what about reversal, Patrick? If somebody is going down the road of dementia and it's recognized, is there reversal?
No, not really.
Okay.
2/3 of dementia is Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is caused by the shrinking of a particular part of the brain. And once those brain cells have gone, the reality is we know no way to get them back. Now, having said that, in the early stages, sort of pre-dementia, pre-Alzheimer's, there have been some very positive studies where you can get improvement. I mean, to give you an example, by the way, your homocysteine level ideally should be below 7. Mm-hmm. You don't want it above 10. Now, I'm 56. My level is 4.3. That's good. Average of a 60-year-old. Average 56-year-old would have a level above 11, about 11. Now, I met a man recently called Chris, and he said that he was 59 years old, and he was very concerned about his memory. He kept losing his car in the multi-story car parks. He lived in a town. And we measured him, and his homocysteine was 119.
Wow.
6 months later, supplementing B vitamins, improving his diet, his homocysteine level had dropped below 10. And he said that his concentration was better than it had ever been in his life. So you can improve memory function, but there is a point beyond which, in Alzheimer's, you've lost the brain cells. They're not coming back. You might be able to arrest the condition, but you can't reverse it. And that's why it's so important to not wait until it's too late. I mean, the same thing is true with joint problems. You can actually, to an extent, reverse arthritis, stop the inflammation. I've had a number of people with rheumatoid arthritis completely free from rheumatoid arthritis. However, the earlier you start, the better, because if your joints have really, significantly degenerated, to the point where you need, a hip operation or something, you're not going to be able to reverse that kind of thing, just by improving your diet and taking some problem.
It's fascinating, Patrick. I know you're going to get a huge amount of people turning up to hear you on Sunday in lovely Cahir House Hotel as part of that Health Expo. It was really good to talk to you. I'm a great admirer of your books, and thank you for making time for us today.